Hey guys, welcome back to another Simone ASMR video. Today we are doing a true crime and we are talking about Margo the scammer. Please bear with me because I'm actually reading off of my notes right behind the camera, so if I look like I'm looking somewhere else, that is what is going on. Okay. Hold on one moment. So, we're going to be sharing the story of Daniel, and then we'll get into another, a few other like details about Margo. And guys, this is a dramatized retelling of Daniel's experience. It's not something that Daniel actually said. It was just like, again, a dramatic read. Okay. So, I met Margo at a Manhattan party in the late 1980s. It was one of those crowded, glittering affairs filled with artists, writers, and socialites. The type of event where everyone seemed to know everyone except you. She stood out immediately. Her presence was magnetic. She introduced herself as Margo Howard. That's a hyphenated double name. The estranged daughter of a British lord. It'd be sounding like Countess. Okay. Her accent was perfect, refined, and unmistakably aristocratic. I wouldn't know. She told me stories of her grand upbringing, lavish estates, royal connections, and scandalous parties. But there was a sadness beneath it all. She claimed her family had disowned her for being too eccentric. And now she was surviving as best as she could in New York. We became friends. Margo was brilliant, full of wit and drama, with a knack of making every conversation feel like a scene out of a novel. I love these kind of people. I was captivated and trusted her completely. One day she confided in me that she was having a temporary financial trouble. Her inheritance, she said, was tied up in a legal red tape back in England. She just needed some help to get through the next few weeks. Daniel, darling, she said with that charming, vulnerable tone, you're one of the few people in this dreadful city who understands me. I wouldn't ask if I didn't absolutely need it. I didn't hesitate. I loaned her $8,000. It was a lot of money for me at the time, but Margo swore she would pay me back as soon as her funds were raised. She even promised to repay me with interest as a token of gratitude, she said. Weeks turned into months, and there was no sign of repayment. Whenever I asked, Margo had an excuse. Her lawyers were dragging their feet, her family was sabotaging her, and some other elaborate tale that always seemed plausible enough. I wanted to believe her. Then I started hearing whispers. People at parties told similar stories. Margo borrowing money, making promises and never paying it back. At first I didn't believe it. Margo wasn't like that. She couldn't be. But the stories piled up and I couldn't ignore them anymore. I confronted her one evening, determined to get the truth. She didn't flinch. Daniel, she said, her voice glamorous and well-connected. Her scams included borrowing money. She would concoct elaborate stories about temporary financial hardships such as delayed inheritance to convince people to lend her large sums of money. She also used to do fake deals where she would occasionally hint at a lucrative business opportunity or the promise to introduce people to influential figures in return for investments. Lavish lifestyle. And then part of the con was the lavish lifestyle. She carefully curated an image including designer clothes, fine jewelry, and frequenting high-end venues, all funded by her scams. But eventually, the web of lies began to unravel as her victims compared notes and realized they had been deceived. Margo's reputation started to crumble and her ability to move through high society waned. So, one thing about scammers is what's gonna kill their whole vibe is exposure. Like, if you make everybody know about them, if they become infamous, then that should be the end of their scamming ways. Okay, so a little bit more about Margo. And again, you guys, as I said, I'm reading. So Margo Howard, the truth about her was she was not a noble English. She was not from a noble English family. She was not a noble English woman. As she claimed, she was born Robert Howard Marks, a man from Queens in New York. That's her dead name. Obviously, she was trans, and she reinvented her name to Margo Howard, a flamboyant British aristocrat. She did not grow up in a glamorous lifestyle. She grew up in a working class family and developed a love for theater, mundane drama, and storytelling, which is what she used to later craft her persona. Her transformation into Margo Howard allowed her to escape her mundane roots and carve out a place for her. Allowed her to craft a place for herself in Manhattan's bohemian and artistic circles. Margo Howard spent time in prison, but not directly for her scams. She was arrested multiple times throughout her life for various offenses, including drug possession and theft, and she struggled with the drug addiction and a tumultuous lifestyle. So, not a long video, but that was the story of Margo. Obviously, like, I was not even into these scam stories until Anna Delvey happened, and then Elizabeth, and then, like, it's just so fascinating. Somebody said there was somebody else who was on the 30 under 30 list, Forbes 30 under 30, and who was found out to be a scammer. And someone was like, man, if you see somebody on the Forbes 30 under 30, it's almost a list for scammers now. But here's the thing I also wanted to do in honor of Anna Delvey. I can't even say her real name, I've forgotten. Anna Sorokian or something like that. She was on Dancing with the Stars, and it was first of all, she's amazing, right? She was really trying to pull off this rebrand, but the anti-immigrant sentiment that is growing in America, additionally to the felony and the life she's lived, there was no way she was gonna do anything. She was kicked off immediately afterwards, and she commented something like, I've learned nothing from this experience, gained nothing, or something like that. What are you taking from this experience? She was like, nothing. It was so funny. And I know she's trying to do like a podcast, do this podcast and everything. She's basically trying to have a comeback. That she's still in the US shocked everybody, and that she's even getting some sort of other notoriety or fame is shocking. As much as they tried to say, like, when she was in court and she had a case, she used to dress better and good and blah blah blah, none of that was relevant until the docuseries, right? And Anna's always going to be a testament to the fact that Delulu is the Sululu sometimes. But I think when you're used to like spinning lives and being this whole other person, isn't it a little bit difficult to be yourself? Who are you really? You know, do people know who that is? And I always wonder with the scammers, like, you can only take it so far. So what you do afterwards, like for Anna, how does she become her real self and try to sell that? Who's gonna buy it? I don't think we're gonna buy it. Hold on one moment for me. Just like wondering, like, with scammers, right? Like when you get exposed like that, what do you do besides serving time? How do you recover? How do you come back? Can you get a regular job and just be a regular person? And also, what is up with, are you telling me that there is still a fascination in America? I don't even know I'm saying that. Of course there is. I was about to say, is there still a fascination in America with European royalty? You know, there was a time when I love reading like romance books. I love reading romance books, and there's these books that have this theme of like the time when American rich people used to go and marry titled gentlemen in Europe to gain their titles, so to be able to be royalty. And I feel like there's still that interest and that obsession. So people would do it so that they would be able to gain access into the upper echelons of New York, because young America was definitely like a little bit of an oligarchy. Like those who, you had to be those who, and of the country really. And people would go and become royal in the UK or in sometimes in France, other places, so that they could come back and be like, I mean, these are very few people, right? Like, there's not a lot of people, because titles are not just everywhere, but they would become, you know, a lord, a lady, because they use their money to buy into wealth. That's it. Buy into blue blood and aristocracy, and then combine it with their wealth and become the hottest, bestest thing. So it seems like the fascination is not over, because it would allow them to come back to New York and gain all the respect that they were not gaining before. It's not over. If you want to reign in another space, just pretend to be an aristocrat from Europe, a distant cousin of the royals, some royals, whatever.